Welcome people to the World Wide Web, and it's the weekend, so it's movie review time. So what do I have for you this week? So it is The Three Musketeers, D'Artagnan, Part 1. And Part 1, what I mean, you may have seen the trailer. So this is actually a two-parter film. These were shot back to back over 150 days. So I can't pronounce the second one because it's mine in French, but it's like the Lady de Winter. It's her, all about the second part of her. So this one, obviously, the Three Musketeers, and obviously D'Artagnan takes a little bit front and centre here. It is the story of D'Artagnan going to Paris and becoming a musketeer. In between, he kind of gets caught within a plot to kind of overthrow the king by sabotaging the queen, and there's a lot of stuff going on. So, you know, you will have to bear with me on this. Apologies, let's put a bit of glare on it. So, lighting things up. So yeah, so it is quite good. Obviously, there aren't too many famous actors as far as I know. There's one, Arthos, however you pronounce him, one of the Musketeers. He's known. He played the Widow Wenchi in The Matrix. He was in like Irresistible and a few other ones. He's probably the most famous person I recognised. Anyone else, I had no idea. Oh, and Eva Green, who plays the Lady de Winter. I think that's the name. And yeah, it's a very interesting take on the Musketeers. Obviously, they bring a bit more. Well, they bring action to it. See, this is the thing. It is a two-parter. You are left on a cliffhanger. It was quite a nice cliffhanger. It's not the biggest of cliffhangers, but it is. There is kind of a character kind of finds out something, but you don't get to see what they find out, and then they get kidnapped at the end. I'm not giving anything really majorly away here, and that's where it ends. Which was really good. You know, it wasn't a massive is this person going to die? It's not, and I think that's good. They kind of didn't want to play on that. You know, it's kind of like, oh, they're going to kill a major character off, but then they're in the next films. You know, like kind of Avengers Endgame was, and Infinity Wars. You know, like, oh yeah, they killed everybody off at the end, but you knew they were all going to come back anyway, so it was a bit anticlimactic. Whereas this one, they didn't really have any killing on that thing. Just over 2 hours, 2 hours and 5 minutes, and it was a really good film. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Big fan of the Musketeers. Haven't seen the TV series for BBC One that they released a few years back. I have series 1 and 2 to watch, and I think series 3 I have to buy. But I've seen like the 90s films. I haven't seen like the French stuff. I think the first French adaptation was in like the 1960s. And I think there is The Musketeer as well, a film from the 90s as well, which I thought was alright that I've got. Yeah, I think that was low budget. So anyway, we'll put the spoiler review up now because I'll start going into a few little details, but there's so much going on. So as obviously the film starts, D'Artagnan, because you don't really know who it is, so D'Artagnan rides to this village. There is a horse and carriage. They get attacked. D'Artagnan gets shot. And then basically the Lady de Winter, turns out she was behind kind of all of this, and she's got this woman for this message that she was carrying, and basically they dispose of everybody. She pays a local person to dispose of all the bodies. It turns out D'Artagnan isn't dead. He arises from his grave, and then he goes to obviously see the Musketeers building, and he wants to meet like the head of the Musketeers because obviously he knows his dad and he wants to get in. So this is kind of set up. So this incident obviously happens that D'Artagnan tried to intervene, tried to help this lady and stuff, and then gets shot. And it's kind of, this is where it starts snowballing. So he goes to the Musketeers, and he meets the head of them, and he says, like, you can be a cadet. I can't give you Musketeer, and that's fine. Like I think traditional one, he ends up bumping into the Three Musketeers along his way of seeing one of the guys that tried to kill him, and ends up having a fight. With all three of them within 2 hour periods. They all turn up to have the fight, and then Count Richelieu, his men, turn up to basically get them in a big fight ensues, and the D'Artagnan and Musketeers kill the 20 people. Now this fight scene is like in a woods. It is almost kind of one camera where it scrolls round with, like, you follow D'Artagnan, he's running around, he's tripping. I mean, he isn't the musketeer that he will become, which is good. And this is where there is a lot of realism and a lot of natural kind of grittiness to this film, and it's why I loved it even more. But yeah, it is one of the main kind of fight scenes, very brightly lit, and then running through, there's a few flinging of swords and guns and stuff, and you know, you go to Aramis and he's fighting someone, and then Porthos is fighting a few people, and back to D'Artagnan running and trying to get on a horse and all this stuff, and that camera work and stuff was really, really good. Obviously they do jazz it up a little bit, like back in the day they probably didn't spin guns and stuff like this, it was very much shoot, but it's for the screen, and I did like that. After obviously this finish, the king, they go to the king, and obviously they're reprimanded for doing it, but he gives them a bit of money, and this kind of links the musketeers together, and D'Artagnan kind of initially steps through it, and then the next kind of morning, Arthos, he wakes up, he's got a dead woman in his bed. He was too drunk. He basically goes to court, and they say, you've got 4 days, you're going to die. You know, what do you say? He says, I don't know, you know, I was that drunk, I don't know I'm not going to lie. So then you kind of, then D'Artagnan and Porthos and Aramis are basically tasked with trying to find out what happened, who the lady was. When they see the lady, it's the lady that D'Artagnan originally tried to save, and then this spirals the thing. Arthos gets basically by someone, kind of frees him, not the musketeers, someone else that you don't really see, and then basically the story progresses as something, and it's more to do with the Queen, and the Queen has a secret relationship that she's trying to hide from the King, but Lord Richelieu is aware of this and tries to drop hints, and then D'Artagnan's tasked with something that Arthos, apologies if I'm butchering his name, goes to help him out. And that's kind of the gist of the story, and this kind of then revolves, and then at the end of the story, kind of D'Artagnan is a musketeer, and they are not 3 musketeers, they are the 4 musketeers, and then obviously, as I said earlier, there's like the kidnapping. And I said, really, really good. I mean, I must admit, it's subtitled, it's in French, it takes a little while because there are very French old style names and stuff used in places, and so when you normally watch subtitles and stuff, it's translated, and it's kind of translated for you to pick up on. So if it's like Japanese or something, it's more in modern day language. When it's phrased a little bit older and the names are a little bit different, it takes a little while to get used to it. I'll give you that, it took me a little while to clock on, and I said this movie is very much meeting all these different people and characters and stuff, and kind of building this world of the Musketeers, and they did it really, really well. I mean, as I said, there was a good action scene, there are a few other good action scenes in there, but it made you want it more, and I think because it's a two-parter, they're holding back, they don't want to release everything straight off the bat. There are scenes that are like natural and gritty, and this is what I'm saying about gritty. When you go to the Musketeers training grounds, there's like mud all over the floor, and there's boards on them, and they're fighting, and when people are stepping on the boards and moving from left to right, you know, it's not polished, it's not Hollywood, you know, like pristine. It is probably how it would have been back in the day if they were like, this is the court, what you think, and it's muddy. It's like, well, we have to put something down to train on it, and boards is what they did. And it was elements like this of how gritty they are, how the clothing is, and it wasn't it wasn't just someone was wet 1 minute and then dry another minute, and there are bits like this that were considered, and then just keep it more real for the time. Even like the posh events in the hall and something where they go to England, it is kind of posh and refined a little bit, but there is still a little bit of that, you know, grittiness to it that I really liked. I say it worked really well and matches the tone overall of the film. The story was really good. I say there are, I neglected quite a few bits of this because I don't want to give other stuff away. Plus, we don't know what the reveal is at the end, and there's a lot of different factions in this that could be working together, but you don't really know. But yeah, I say it all blends and merges and works together. I mean, if you're a fan of the Musketeers, I would highly recommend this film. It is really, really good, and I'm going to give it a 8 out of 10, which is quite funny because all last night on the way home I was like 7.5. It's a 7.5. It's a franchise film. It's 7.5, and I was like, no. It's an 8. It's an 8. It's definitely probably can improve a little bit if I go and rewatch the DVD. I'm really hoping this gets a physical media release. I hope they do 1 and 2 together, because the second one should be coming out this year. I can't find anything online of when or that, because it's been filmed back to back. It will get released. It may just go straight to DVD if the first one doesn't do that well. But I mean, it is really good. Like the guy who plays D'Artagnan, I read a lot up about, like, he had to do a lot of training for like 6 months and that, and he did most of his fights himself. And you know, as I say, this as it shows, he's a lad from probably a backwater town, or not backwater, but from a poor town. His dad's trained him as best as he could, and you can tell he's quite rough. And whereas the musketeers are a little bit more refined, and that all shows. It's not like in some other ones, you know, like, oh, this is D'Artagnan, he's a prodigy, and he's just like better than the three musketeers, or at least as good as them. In this one, he isn't as good, and they make a fact of that in a few points of, like, oh, obviously when he's going to die, he gives him his sword, and then when he meets him later on, he goes like, oh, I gave you my sword, and that's how you use it. And there's little bits like that that just worked so well on so many levels. There was a few bits where they travel here and there, and rather than doing the traditional, okay, we got to go to England, we're in England, it was, you had D'Artagnan making the initial journey, you had him meeting up with Orpheus, you had him on the boat, and then he was at the castle for the event. And there was just enough sprinkling there to kind of fill out that journey. It didn't need to do it all. It didn't need to go, you went straight there. You know, and there were just elements like that it just worked so well on so many levels. And, you know, as I say, it was, and even there, like, it was nice to have a bit of change. It was nice to have the grittiness and the sword fighting and stuff. And I say that first sword fight, I'm really looking forward to having that physical media and watching that fight again, because I say, it seemed like it was one camera. I couldn't, obviously, that was just following one person, and then it goes to another person, it goes to another person, it goes to another person. But it worked just so well up until the end bit, and then there's just, it slows down. But there's obvious reasons for that. But just it's what the musketeers are. You know, these are kind of legendary characters, and they are some of the best sword fighters and shooters out there, which they do represent. I say there's a little bit of comedy as well. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. It was only at cinema for a week, so by the time you're watching this video, it's already left my cinema. It was only for like 7 days, I'd say, and because of it was like 1 or 2 showings, is why I went straight for it. Hopefully that means it might be on physical media sooner rather than later. But yeah, I definitely thoroughly recommend this film. It was a nice surprise, because I didn't know until a few weeks, probably a month ago, when I saw the trailer for it, that this even was out there, and having to see the trailer, to watch it within like a few weeks or maybe a month, was actually a nice change. It keeps it fresh there. And I say, it is a really good film. It's something that is a superhero. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I will keep singing its praises for as long as I want. So anyway, that has been my one movie review. Apologies that I may sneak in a second one if I get a chance to see Evil Dead this week, but if I don't, then it'll be on next week's one. But anyway, I've been Cypher Sigma Screen Time. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, please do like, comment, subscribe. It's all appreciated. It's good to know, good to let me know, good to let YouTube know that you like these videos and the content I'm out. If I'm missing anything, if I feel like you feel like I do anything better, please do put it in the comments as well. You know, as long as you're not going out there to be thoroughly nasty, I do appreciate most comments back and stuff. And, you know, the community on YouTube has been so nice so far. I do appreciate it. But anyway, I shall see you in the next one, everybody. Have a nice weekend.